Now, don't mistake that, ladies and gentlemen, for anything spooky. I recognize that it is no longer October 31st or necessarily October as a whole. It is, in fact, now November somehow in the 12th season of Often Pacing. It would be the 12th season now, wouldn't it? It's been 11 months since it debuted back in January. We're getting there. We're getting through those double digits, folks, including through the lives of our own. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Often Pacing Live, a long-awaited edition of Often Pacing Live. I am your exclusive and reclusive host, Ray Catolo, back from North American Harness Update to bring you often pacing stakes, interviews, etc., 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 whatever else I really do on this show. But before I get to the interview that we have today for the Windy City Pace over at Hawthorne Racecourse, a $200,000 stakes event that goes off at precisely 10:30 a.m. in the morning. Recently, North American Harness Update went out to Hoosier Park to cover the Breeders' Crown. I don't know if anybody saw that. We had a video cast that went for almost the entirety of both Breeders' Crown programs at Hoosier Park on Friday and Saturday. And you can catch that on North American Harness Update's Periscope page. And then we're going to be, as the weeks go on, taking out clips from the interviews that we were able to get, interviews from people such as Marcus Miller, Brian Sears, Jeff Gural, any big name in harness racing came by to our set and talked harness racing. We didn't talk like poker or anything to people, but you can catch all of that on replay over on the North American Harness Update Periscope page and eventually in clips on YouTube as we dissect them. But for now, it's time to get ready for our guest, because our guest is a man, a person, a horse player? I think he's a horse player. He is responsible for a lot of what Hawthorne has to offer. Some may call him Mr. Hawthorne. Other people may not call him Mr. Hawthorne. However, I almost called him Mr. Hawthorne, but instead I'll call him by his name.
Hello, this is Jim.
It's Jim Miller.
Hey,
Hey, how you doing?
good, how are you?
I'm alright. I forgot if that's how you talked. You had like a weird New Yorker tone to your voice all of a sudden.
I do?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, being from Chicago.
Oh no, I'm sensing the Chicago now. It's big cities do that to you. That's what they say.
That's alright. What's going on?
Well, this is the Often Pacing broadcast that we told you would be on. I have questions for you because we've talked before. You came on to North American Harness Update one time, and I flipped your portrait on your ticket, so you were upside down for some reason. But
Yes. And the ticket won.
exactly, and forever now you're gonna thank me for doing that.
I love it. I think it's great.
And it's great that we have support from somewhere like Illinois, which always is booming harness racing wise, because while they may not race for a lot of money, it is one of the most bet and wagered upon circuits.
Right, right. And I think a lot of it's just a history of the racing in Illinois being around for so long. But I'll tell you, I mean, the racing's jumped from track to track to track and moved around for so many years. Used to have winter doubleheaders at Sportsman's Park, which is no longer even in existence.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'd have a meet at Hawthorne, and then you'd go to Balmoral, then you'd go to Maywood. But you'd be racing on a couple mile ovals, couple half-mile ovals, and you could get a little bit of everything. So, I mean, times have changed, but the good thing is the support is definitely still there.
And Jim, from my days getting into harness racing, I came in after Hawthorne no longer was a harness track. So I assumed that you were you there when it was still a harness track, or did you come in when there was thoroughbreds?
I came in right at the tail end of harness, so I was actually still working some winter doubleheaders at Sportsman's Park.
Okay.
And you had Hawthorne still in the mix, and it was the last Hawthorne meet. And then we had our hiatus, and then we came back in the mid 2000s and raced again for 4 years then, before having another long break. And now we're just, I'll tell you, it's insane now because you go back and forth between the conversion, and I believe we're the only track left in North America that's actually doing a track conversion from a thoroughbred surface to a standardbred surface with the same track. everybody else either has a separate track or they're only racing one breed or the other. So it gets a little bit hectic for us over at Hawthorne.
Well, that was until Century Downs said, we got money to spend.
There you go. So we're looking for that money. I'll tell you, that's been the hardest thing. Is you have the long history and you have the handle and you have the betters, and then you look at all the surrounding states which don't have nearly the history in that, but they have the gaming. So you get those purses, and it has drawn some horses out of Illinois. But it's a never-ending battle for trying to get gaming. And you hate to say it, almost to try to get back on an equal playing field now, but we're fighting the fight. We're sticking around, and I'll tell you, hopefully we're coming off a good summer meet too. So hopefully things will improve this winter also.
Well, I gotta say, you probably have more money now that Blagojevich is out of office, but inside Illinois joke, and I don't even live there.
That's all right.
So then, before I get to my next question, I want to ask about your history pertaining to either harness racing or horse racing as a whole. How did you get involved?
Sure. I actually started back in 1993 in guest services at Arlington Park. And I worked in guest services for about half the year and then moved into the press box right around the time of the Arlington Million. And then right after that, they made some changes in the staff, and I ended up remaining in the press box. So in 1994, I was actually the press box manager, and little did they know, and I'm sure a lot of it has to do with my height being 6'7" in that, but they didn't know my age at the time, so I was 17 years old going to high school and then going to run the press box at Arlington and going on air, and just stuck around after that, worked at Arlington until 1997 when I got drafted to play baseball in the Milwaukee Brewers organization. And then at that point, it just worked out that the racing season was the fall thoroughbred seasons at Hawthorne. So I played baseball in the summer, worked thoroughbreds in the fall at Hawthorne at that point, and then moved over to Hawthorne and just stayed there since the end of my baseball career in 2000.
You know, that's what I had to do. I should have been 6'7". Being 6 foot did not help me at all. And not only that, the beard didn't start coming until like this year.
I wish I were left-handed. I'd have had a long baseball career too.
6'7" for a baseball player? You sure you chose the right sport?
I played a little basketball in college and that, but being as slim as I was, I got knocked around quite a bit. So baseball, I found out I put a baseball in my hand, I could throw it really hard. I was throwing about 93, 94 miles per hour. So I had a good arm there for baseball, and that along with the height made me a pretty appealing prospect to some teams out there. So it was fun. It was a good 4 years playing baseball, but I came up in the horse racing industry, and I'm happy to remain in the racing industry too.
Not only that, I feel like you'd be really into mosh pits, but that's besides the point. If you love being knocked around so much. For my information, because I don't follow any sport other than horse racing, just to prove my passion for it, Milwaukee Brewers, professional?
Yeah, the Milwaukee Brewers team, that was the professional baseball team that drafted me, and then I played through 3 of their different minor league organizations. So it was one of those things, you start on rookie ball, work your way up through a couple different levels of single A ball, and then there's double A and triple A. I got to their highest level of single A ball and was playing out in Stockton, California, actually, at the time. And I'll tell you, it was a good ride. It was a fun ride, but one of those things where you run into politics like you do anywhere else, going back to your Blagojevich comments, and that's kind of what hit me on the baseball end, and that's okay. I don't mind it.
That's why they tell you, don't take bribes.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you play baseball, always take brides.
Do what you can.
Now, you see, when you say Milwaukee Brewers, I was almost impressed, because I thought you played professional baseball. Not to say that minor league baseball is anything different. I couldn't play either. But it seemed a little misleading there, Mr. Miller. A little misleading.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's still a professional organization. You're getting paid to play baseball, so that's the thing, too. So you're a paid player, so that's one of the things where, hey, it was a profession. That was it for a while.
Speak for yourself. Do you think I get paid to perform? Wishful thinking.
Come on, we love racing. That's why we do it.
That's why. Yeah, it's not for the money and the food and the warm shelter.
Exactly. A roof over your head and a meal and all that. But that's okay. We do everything we can to promote, right?
I'd say I do my best.
You do for sure. You got to get out there, and then getting the word out there is tough. But I'll tell you, the good thing is you're coming off a good time now. You're coming off Breeders' Crown at Hoosier. I think they did a great job out there, and it's one of those things where you're battling. And here in Chicago, we battle all the major sports teams, and that's one of the things that makes it a little tougher destination-wise for Hawthorne. But you get the strength of the simulcast signal, which definitely helps.
Which I gotta ask, Mr. Miller, did you see Nahu live from the Breeders' Crown?
I did not. So, and I have to apologize, and it's only because we're in the midst of a thoroughbred meet too. So, a lot going on that end. We have Breeders' Cup weekend here on the thoroughbred end, so my apologies there.
Well, I mean, I looked at the Breeders' Cup too, but I found 7 hours to drive out to Indiana.
There you go.
I don't know why all of a sudden I'm just patronizing people.
I don't mind it at all. I mean, it's better. Come on, have fun. People got to do that. If you can't, then why are we in this too? So.
Exactly.
Go for it, my friend.
Exactly, and if you couldn't take it, how would you be from Chicago? Look.
Well, dude, come on, I'm a public handicapper. If people don't tell me I'm terrible a couple times every day, then something must be wrong, right?
It's different when it's your father, but the point I'm trying to make here. That's a deep hole for many people. So you grew up with thoroughbreds, and then you kind of went into harness with sportsmen, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I worked the one meet at Sportsman's Park there. It was one winter meet.
Okay.
And then after that, just kind of picked up and got much more involved when we were racing it into the mid-2000s at Hawthorne, and really got deeply involved then, just on the management end of things, but getting to know the horsemen, watching the track conversion. And when we started back, the first meet we had back was 70 consecutive nights. So you had no break, no nights off. You were going day in and day out, and if there wasn't a draw going on, there was live racing going on. So it was kind of being thrown right into the fire for it. But I'll tell you, it's something that I enjoy. It's a sport that there's a whole lot of different nuances when you're handicapping, especially compared to the thoroughbred end of things. But it's something that really I don't mind it at all. I really do enjoy it.
Well, that's what I was gonna say is being a harness guy now by force over the last couple of years, would you say that you'd prefer that over thoroughbreds?
You know what? I don't want to say I prefer it. I'd say it's probably equaling out more, only because I came up on the thoroughbred end, so I definitely, admittedly, was partial to thoroughbreds at the start.
Mm-hmm.
But you find the different nuances of harness racing, and the thing that I've enjoyed quite a bit is I've had the ability to get out there and jog horses and that, and really get behind a horse and appreciate the power and appreciate everything that goes into it. And just strategy-wise is so much different on the harness end, and the importance of the drivers, and it really is a big difference. But it's much more of an appreciation now, and I'll tell you, it's probably leveling and equaling everything out.
You're telling me that at 6'7" you've never ridden a horse?
Oh, I've ridden a horse, but not at the same speed as what you have getting behind a standardbred. I mean, I've gone out there and jog horses miles around the Hawthorne track, and we've done some celebrity-type races where you're getting up to speed, you're covering the mile in, say, 2 minutes and 8 seconds, so you're going fast enough. But a thoroughbred, I'd say my feet would be dragging on the track probably with my height.
6'7" would be that would be like 20 hands then, and you only have two hands. You have two hands.
I'd be out there harrowing the track while I'm on the back of the thoroughbred.
So let's talk about Hawthorne Harness a bit, because you're trying to, gaming is currently trying to come to Illinois still, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, I mean it seems like an endless battle, but you're going through trying to get gaming, trying to be competitive, and there's different ways you go about it. I mean there's full blown casino expansion that you can try for. There's electronic gaming, which they have in different bars and restaurants here in the area, and then there's exploring historical racing, which is more on the pari-mutuel end of things. So everything's kind of out there, and we're in a state that you're working budgetarily with. We went a couple of years without a budget here in Illinois, so you're trying to get a budget in place. You're trying to help the state, and there's just so many different hands in the pot that makes it very tough. But it does seem like a never-ending battle. But you know what? The battle goes on. We've seen some opportunities arise where it looks like it could be in the future and in the near future. And I'll tell you, if that's the case, you're looking at just with the massive population in the area of these racetracks, you could see purses double, if not go higher than that, if you do get gaming in at these racetracks.
Now, for people that may not know, including myself, who knows somewhat vaguely, if you could explain what these historical racing machines are.
Sure. Historical racing is basically it's a pari-mutuel machine where you're playing and wagering against the other people that are playing at the historical races at your facility. And these machines have races that took place in the past. They don't give you the names of the horses. They're not able to go out there and research what race is coming up. You don't have that amount of time. But when you go to play that race, you're given basically a past performance type of setup, which is going to help kind of guide you through playing the race and the chances to try to help your chances for winning on these machines. And you can play a quick pick type of method, which some people choose to do, but it is a game of chance. There is some skill involved, and there's the pari-mutuel aspect, and that's kind of what revolves around the historical racing.
And the other benefit to them, too, if I'm not mistaken, is because they aren't technically slot machines, the revenue goes to the racetracks, correct?
Correct, right. And the cut of the revenue is much different because it's on a pari-mutuel end of things. The regulation of it's different because it would be covered under your racing board instead of your gaming commission. So we're already used to being regulated by the Illinois Racing Board. So you're dealing with the same people, and it's one of the things too where it's not like you're starting a new precedent trying to start fresh with building a casino. You already have this historical racing which came in at Arkansas, at Oaklawn. It's been conducted in Kentucky and other locations. So there is some history behind the historical racing too, which is something that's beneficial when you're trying to push it through a legislature and try to educate people that may not know about it.
So is the goal for Hawthorne to try and get solely historical racing, or to integrate both into a gaming facility?
You know what? Honestly, right now it's whatever you can get into the facility to help generate purse money. There's some that are partial to historical racing. There's some that are partial to gaming. There's some that are partial to electronic gaming, which doesn't have, for example, your card tables and your dealers and that. So it's really trying to get everybody on the same path, find out what cut is best for everybody, from an aspect of regulation and from an aspect of what's going to benefit the purses most while still generating money for the state. Historical racing is probably the best way to go right now. But at the same point, you look at these mega casinos that some of these other tracks have and the amount of money they can generate where they don't have a huge population base. And you look at us 10 miles outside of Chicago, a metropolitan area of 5 million people, and then you say, okay, well, what could you generate off a casino? So there's a lot of juggling back and forth and just trying to find what everybody's going to agree with and what cuts are going to be best.
Well, I'm always curious when it comes to these kind of legislative battles is why would the state be so, not maybe abrasive's the right word, or ultimately opposed to getting a casino in a place like outside of Chicago?
And that's the hardest thing is we had a casino bill actually passed twice, and then you had a governor that vetoed it, and we're not sure the reason why either, which has made it tough. But you have a couple locations that tend to benefit, and those legislators tend to benefit. But then you have legislators who you need to say, okay, how does this help me? And then that's the one thing where, at least for racing, it helps because you have the agricultural aspect that spans throughout the state, from the breeding operations, from everything that's going on with the farms that provide feed for the racetracks and that kind of stuff. So you're trying to incorporate so many different people to support basically an expansion of gaming at only a certain amount of locations. And that's the biggest thing involved, is getting enough people on board to say, okay, what's in it for me? How can I benefit while still benefiting the state? And I mean, just the tax benefit to the state would be huge with any of these. And when you're trying to help balance a budget, that's kind of what we're trying to help explain as well.
But I mean, like, outside of Chicago, what's left in Illinois?
Because you go down to Springfield, and that's it. And Springfield for harness racing at the end of things is huge because you have a lot of horsemen down there. But you're right, really, it becomes the agribusiness on that end because Chicago is your main population base, and you do have so many people here. But when it comes down to getting votes, there are so many other counties, so many other representatives, and that's what makes it so important to be able to work this through the entire state. That's
why I'm going to pull my inner Nathan Fielder. I'm going to suggest maybe what you guys need to do is shrink the size of Illinois.
There you go, and make Chicago one portion. Is that what you're saying?
Make Chicago its own state.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of locations out there that I'm sure would consider it, but we we really you get a lot of influence from so many places outside of Chicago that you do need them on both the standardbred and thoroughbred end here, and I'm hoping everybody can get on the same page. There's been so many discussions that it seems like you're so close, and you hope that you can get everybody involved and get things ironed out and really working well.
Mm-hmm. And I think we can both agree that Texas does not deserve to be its own country. But now I want to move on to more Hawthorne side of things with you, because you are what is your role at Hawthorne now?
You name it, I do it. I'm the director of publicity. I handle horsemen's relations. I'm the stall man on the harness end, the morning line odds maker, the racing analyst, the backup track announcer, and also the general manager of the state fair racing here in Illinois.
Not only that, you are the head of the Harness Racetrack's janitorial union.
So I am, really?
You said you name it, I do it.
There you go. I am our district representative for the United States Trotting Association as well. So I do keep very busy.
I don't know. I was gonna say, as head of the janitorial union, you really sweep up, but I hate myself sometimes. So you do all of those things. You handicap. You run. You are Mr. Hawthorne, like I said. Except I don't want to call you Mr. Hawthorne. I want to call you Mr. Miller, because you are defined by yourself, not by your role. But I also want to know what's coming up in the next. First off, when's the next Hawthorne Harness season?
We have a winter meet coming up. It starts January 5th, and I'll tell you, it's a very quick conversion. The thoroughbred meet ends on December 30th, so we start immediately after that. Those races get done, and start pulling up the racetrack, pulling out the hubless rail, and getting everything set up for the harness meet. But that conversion is done in about 72 hours, and then that meet starts on January 5th, and we race January 5th through February 19th, and we'll go 4 days a week for throughout the course of the winter there, and then we're back at it, and a full summer meet again, starting early in May and going through the end of September. So you have a couple of breaks throughout the meet, but this winter meet's going to draw a lot of people that maybe not done with racing at Hoosier. They get done there, and they can move over here to Hawthorne and race. A lot of your Illinois horsemen who got done at the end of September just turned out horses after 5 months of racing during the summer, and then they come back, and then you get some other horsemen that'll come in. Renee Alart's expressed some interest in coming back. Frank Petrelli's going to be back with a stable of horses. So it really is a good meet in the winter. It's a competitive meet. We have a very hardy bunch of drivers, so there's really no condition that's going to cause a cancellation in races. And it is. It's a successful meet in the winter when there's not a whole lot of competition. And when we did it 2 years ago, handle was strong. And we're looking forward to it. But that track conversion, I'll tell you, no matter what you see weather-wise, we guys out there with blow torches that we're trying to get the rail out just to get ready to strip up that track. But they do a very good job here.
Well, I'd imagine too, you're out there in the tractors pulling up the track, no?
I have been out there helping with the conversion in the past of pulling out the rail. So it is. It's all hands on deck here. I mean, our facility maintenance people are out there. Our backstretch maintenance people are out there. And at the same time, you have to understand we're shuffling around horses on the backside, because you still have thoroughbreds that remain stable here during the winter, but they may be getting relocated in barns while you have standardbred horses that are coming in to get ready for the meet. So there's a whole lot of moving parts, and it happens in a very quick amount of time.
All hands on deck. You're understaffed. That's the problem.
Well, think about it, though. I mean, there aren't any other tracks that are doing this conversion. So you look at it, it's something that it's very quick, but we've done it numerous times. We have a track crew that's been here with the guys that have been here 15 to 25 years for all the crew. Mm-hmm. So that's beneficial as well. But yeah, it is. It's a huge undertaking and a lot of tasks involved, but they do a good job.
Now, is there anything special coming up with this Hawthorne winter meet, such as a Nahu crossover or anything of that sort?
Well, what we're doing is trying to put together a stakes program right now for the winter meet, and trying to figure out the best way to put it together. But it's just working with your horsemen's associations and trying to figure out purse money too, because you have purse money that you're generating year round, and there's so much going on. You're trying to get series in place. Like I said, I'm handling all the stall apps coming in right now too, so it's very busy at this time.
I'm amazed you even found a half hour to talk with me. What about on like the wagering side? Any kind of new wagers going to be coming in or anything of that sort?
You know what, our biggest thing thing wagering wise that you try to shuffle around is maybe not the new wagers, but trying to get exposure to them with a lower takeout. And the biggest thing we did was lowering that takeout on the pick 4s to 15%, lowering the takeout on the pick 5 to 15%, and then putting it at an amount where you can still generate some carryovers. And that's what we saw. We have a 50-cent minimum for these wagers. But I'll tell you, you're going to have 10 horse fields the entire meet. You do get carryovers, and what you see is you get a carryover of $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, and it takes that pool the next day and basically doubles it. So what we're doing there, then you're generating more purse money, you're generating more commissions on that, and it does make a big difference. And it's one of the things that we're trying to do is put out wagers where you're not say watering down the pools, you're not pulling from other pools, but you're still able to generate interest over a multi-race sequence. And that's something that's helped us a lot. We get a great coverage out of TVG, where every race is shown on TVG. They promote these wagers as well, and I think that does benefit because our purses are solely handle driven here. So really, you have to generate as much purse money as you can, and you have to do it by generating as much handle as you can, and that's what we're working towards doing.
Well, Jim, any final thoughts you guys say?
You know what, looking at this, here's the biggest thing. People ask, is racing dead in Illinois? And we're far from dead here, which is a good thing. We had a good meet in the summer around the standardbred end. We're having a good fall thoroughbred meet here. We're working towards building in the state of Illinois and trying to get purse generation, purse supplements, and if we can get gaming, then you're really going to see a huge growth, and it will blow up racing in the Midwest because you're going to have so much purse money here. But that's the biggest thing that we're working towards now, and just the support of everybody in the industry on both ends of things. Try to get as much support as you can out there.
I don't know if you want to blow up racing, but you meant it figuratively. Okay, I got you. You meant it figuratively. That's way more better. Way more better. Jim, thank you for taking time out of your day and your life and your vocation.
You got it. No problem. I'm looking forward to this weekend for the Breeders' Cup. I'm looking forward to our winter meet. There's so much going on, and it's a good thing. Things are so much more exciting when we're racing than when you have a couple of months off and you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs. I
don't know, Jim. You got to be honest. You got to be excited for the Breeders' Cup.
I am excited. I'm very excited.
Well, okay,
so it'll be a good weekend.
Then that just shows how much more excited you are for the winter meet. Jim Miller, thank you for joining us.
You got it. Thanks. Take it easy.
You too. That's Jim Miller of Hawthorne Racecourse, the handicapper, morning line odds maker, therapy major, janitorial union staff. And with that, I realized that I forgot to put up the graphic, and instead we just had the field for a race at Ashworth Fairgrounds showing. That was a mistake, but however, we do see the field now for the Windy City Pace coming up in 45 seconds. Inside out, we got Thinking Out Loud for Simpson Racing, Ella Fitzgerald for AJP239, MD Cool Albertson, I might just call Cool Albertson, for Charnocky, driven by Brett Erickson. We got Dark Destroyer for Turnbull Stables, Garrett Eisman aboard. Wicked Lindsay, owned by the Shoey Stables, driven by Jody Jameson. Executive Trap, owned by Ace Mulhall Stables, driven by Jason Lee. Remy LaCroix, owned by Dank Racing, driven by Anthony Butt. Then we have Miss TV for Dumple Farms, guided by Tyler St. Louis. Rudy Makes Monsters, owned by Howell with Peter Kleinhans. And on the far outside, KB Mama, driven by Mike Wilson for A1 since day one. This is it, folks. The $200,000 Windy City Pace Final. It's going to be picking up speed. Any moment. Here it goes. Field for the Windy City Pace is in motion and approaching the start. Off fan pacing from the inside. Ella Fitzgerald fires for the lead. Dark Destroyer from in between horses gets away second, then parked out. Wicked Lindsay with Executive Trap wide around that first turn into that opening quarter. The Gray Thinking Out Loud gets away now into third as the field begins to duck towards the inside. Fourth still parked out. Wicked Lindsay wide of Cool Albertson now tucking into fifth. Second over then comes Executive Trap as they move on to that opening quarter in the flow to Remy LaCroix. Then it's back towards the rear with Miss TV, Rudy Makes Monsters, trailing right behind KB Mama, the penultimate. 25 seconds the opening quarter, moving into the backstretch. It's Wicked Lindsay and Jameson leading the way by a neck. Outside, Executive Trap advancing up now to take the lead as he moves up to clear, heading to that 3/8 pull. Remy LaCroix is now left uncovered, moving up towards second and now within a neck of the lead, now moving towards the lead as Anthony Butt tries to grab the front. with Remy LaCroix. He clears now into that half. On the outside, Ella Fitzgerald is first over through a 54-2 half, 29-2 that second quarter, and Ella Fitzgerald clears as they shuffle towards that far turn. Parked out now. Dark Destroyer not advancing in second. To the inside, Remy LaCroix third. Then it's back to Executive Trap. To the inside of Thinking Out Loud, who's moved outside. Now 3 wide for Marcus Miller. Ducks back inside for Marcus Miller. Ducks back outside for Marcus Miller. Ducks back inside for Marcus Miller. Back outside again as they go on to 3/4. Meanwhile, it's Ella Fitzgerald leading to that panel in 1:22-3. Remy LaCroix locked in. Dark Destroyer to the outside trying to advance. Then blind switched KB Mama to the inside of him. Comes Executive Trap as they pace through the stretch. In front, Ella Fitzgerald getting separation for Greg Sugars. Remy LaCroix looks for room. Dark Destroyer coming back to the outside up towards second. Moving up and is lunging for the lead. Dark Destroyer surges to the front for Iceman. And Dark Destroyer's coasting to the line in front. It's Dark Destroyer to take the Windy City pace from Ella Fitzgerald, KB Mama, and Wicked Lindsay in 1:47-3. Well, there that was. Dark Destroyer for the Turnbull Stable, driven by Garrett Iceman, taking the $200,000 Windy City pace. And again, thank you to Jim Miller, who basically owns, runs, operates Hawthorne Racecourse, for joining us on this broadcast. Thanks to all of you for joining us on this broadcast. And congratulations also to Turnbull Stable for winning the Windy City pace with Dark Destroyer, who, after this win, as we now look, Dark Destroyer, now an earner of over $21 million, has a mark of 144-4, most likely set at Hilltop Park. Oh, wow. Has 124 wins to a 197 race career. And again, $21 million in earnings. Dark Destroyer, the Windy City pace, is just another trophy for this horse, who has also won the Victory Lap Mile, the Hambletonian, the Six Pace, the North America Cup, the Paradise Classic, the Napoleon Challenge, the Juvenile Challenge, and the Cabin Open. The 5-year-old horse, Dark Destroyer, by the Wawa, out of the mare Umpires on Strike, a Dan horse whom this is her richest foal. And with that, this has been another edition of Often Pacing Live. I have been Ray Catola. Thank you for joining us here on this broadcast. Thanks again, 1,000 thanks to Jim Miller, one of my favorite guys in this industry. I'm not sure if that even means anything if I'm saying he's one of my favorites. However, I do thoroughly enjoy Jim. They're doing a bang-up job out there in Illinois, and the racing is top-notch. So much top-notch that I barely understand how to handicap it. But that's my problem to solve for this upcoming winter meet, which starts January 5th on Hawthorne, at Hawthorne. You can catch that on your ADWs, at your local racetrack simulcast, at your OTWs, OTBs, OTABCs, and any kind of place you can place legal wagers, maybe even some illegal, but I won't tell anyone. For now, I have been Ray Catolo. He was Jim Miller. He still is Jim Miller, and he's out working, and you all should be too, including myself. Let's all return to the world and come back when there's another Often Pacing stake to call.